Newsfirst Newsline with Faraz Shaukatali.
Good evening and welcome to another edition of Newsline Live right here on TV1. Your usual host Faraz Shaukatali is unable to be on the show tonight, but I'm sitting in for him. I'm Shehan Ranatunga and I thank you for your company tonight. And I want to start off with a simple question. Have you been experiencing power cuts recently over the last few weeks? Maybe you're experiencing it right now. Have you asked the question, why are we having this problem? Maybe you know the answer, maybe you're not so sure, maybe you are completely clueless. And we hope to tonight maybe shed some light on this issue in Sri Lanka right now. And who better than our guest tonight? We have Mr. Cyril Suduwella, who is a former head of the laboratory and manager technical services at the Sapugaskanda oil refinery. He is also senior deputy general manager, corporate affairs and business development for the Petroleum Corporation. Good evening, Mr. Suduwella.
Good evening to you.
Mr. Suduwella, I'd just like to get straight into the crux of the matter. We know that there has been a lot of expert opinions on this subject, on this issue right now, but the bottom line is Sri Lanka is, although temporarily the officials say that there's no need for power cuts, yeah, we are faced with the reality that any moment, any day now, we could experience power cuts. Mr. Suduwella, in your experience, your knowledge, where is the problem really?
I think the basic problem is in Sri Lanka we have sufficient, at the moment we have sufficient power generation capacity, but this capacity is divided into the various segments. One is that renewable energy, when you go to solar power or wind power or hydropower. The hydropower is the most reliable one. Other things are the seasonal or the time to time. If you the wind power, when there is a wind, of course you can get maybe about 150 megawatt. But when there is no wind, maybe even it can go to even 10 megawatt. But in the solar also you can get daytime, but the night time there is no power generation. But the hydropower is when the reservoirs are full. Of course you can get the reasonable quantum of energy. But this particular days, of course, we are running short. We have good sunlight, but the power generation is daytime only. And the main, when you take the base load, the main power source is the thermal power generation, either coal or the fuel. When you go to fuel, there are the three types. You get the furnace oil, you get the diesel, and you get the naphtha. But when depending on the type of the generators we have, if you go to Kalanatissa, you have diesel power and the combined cycle power plant. And when you go to Sapugaskanda, you have the heavy furnace oil power plants. When you go to other places, you get the either furnace oil or diesel, or in some places low sulfur furnace oil. But when the country is running short of the fuel, then naturally those power stations will cease to function. So when there is no thermal power, of course there is a big vacuum. That is why the possible power cuts are imminent. But if the government can continuously supply uninterrupted fuel supply to those generators for the time being, I think the country can run without the power cuts.
So taking the situation right now at the Sapugaskanda oil refinery, what's the situation right now, Mr. Suduwella?
Yes, Sapugaskanda refinery, it was built about 50 years before, and now it is running. It was initially built for 35,000 barrels per day, and it was upgraded or the debottleneck and to 50,000 barrels per day, and it was done so many modifications, but without expanding its capacity. And the refinery is 50,000 barrels per day today. It is 1/3 of the country's requirement. And so even with 1/3 requirement, the crude oil are short supplied, and refinery cannot operate and shut down intermittently. So the continuous supply of crude oil is important. So if the continuous supply of crude oil is assured, the refinery can make definitely all this what is required product, heavy furnace oil and the furnace oil, diesel and naphtha. So then those products can easily use for power generation without interruption of the power cuts.
Did we see this coming, Mr. Suduwella, or did it catch us suddenly unawares?
No, this is of course the refinery. One thing, the refinery expansion was planned for many years and many governments, but nothing has happened. With the available refinery capacity of 50,000 barrels per day, I know that even couple of the months it was running half the capacity, maybe because of the not having upgrading the technology and not debottlenecking is the throughput capacity. And so if the refineries, even the existing refinery, if we can run 100% throughput, we can get the fairly significant quantum of all these products.
I'd like you to now kindly explain to our viewers what exactly is the importance of these refineries when it comes to power generation in a country. Like
Good question. In fact, as I told you, the entire country, the base load depends on the fossil fuels or the diesel furnace oil or heavy furnace oil or naphtha, and those products are either we'll have to import or produce. The produce in the sense produced by using crude oil. And if someone want to import, that importation of either diesel or furnace oil has to come through either Colombo Port Dolphin Pier or Muthurajawala SPM or China Bay LIOC facility. So whatever the facility used, if we import, there are import procedures, and according to the custody transfer or the import procedures, every shipment has a certain amount of losses due to evaporation losses and shipment losses, pipe transfer losses, and those various losses. And if seven products are imported into country, the 7 times into the maybe 0.5 into losses. So that is going to be a huge loss. But if you import crude oil and crude oil sent to the Sapukaskanda or Urugudawatta and then refine in the Sapukaskanda, so you can definitely get rid of that type of unwanted the losses. And the price also, you get the people are some people say argue that refinery is not profitable. I am 100% sure that refinery make at least for 10% crack margin any refinery. So the loss calculation of cost of production calculation, if someone it calculated based on the imported products or various products, it can be calculated as a loss. But no refinery in the world operate with under losses, because it can easily make at least 10% crack margin.
So then why was the decision reached to shut down the refinery? Could you talk to us the benefits about shutting down a refinery as opposed to
shutdown is purely the lack of crude oil, because the crude oil shipment ordered, but I don't want to discuss about the political the situation, but anyway, the crude oil, first time the crude oil imported from a Nigerian party, that party has not complied as they agreed. And I heard that the performance, everything is not given back to them. Anyway, because of that situation, there was a shortage. Of course, when until the refinery get the crude oil, they were running at a lowest throughput until they crude. Finally, when there is no crude, of course, they cannot run refineries. So they compelled to shut down the first time. And then the second time when they got the crude oil, they got the one shipment of crude oil, usually about 90,000 metric ton only you get it, but in the crude oil. But that 90,000, before that over the next shipment should come, somehow the next shipment came not also came in time. So second time also they will have to shut down. But this time I think they have already now received the crude oil shipment at the port. I think they discharged yesterday. And if the Sapukaskanda refinery again recommences production maybe in couple of days time, probably we will get the products. But I don't know what is the throughput they are going to operate. If they operate in the maximum throughput and if the crude oil supply is continuously supplied, the refinery can easily make the good contribution to the issue, and by making the huge profit for the government, not for the CPC. Maybe if you take the government, but importing refined products and importing crude oil and refining inside has so many benefits. And if the refinery is shut down, you will have to, as I said, you will have to pay depend on the import crude oil and the losses. In addition to that, since the country is now in the bad financial situation, so nobody give the LC opening, the prices also they jack up. Usually when there is usually when you import petrol and diesel, they got the Singapore flat price plus or minus premium. but never go to premium, only few occasions. But when you go to premium, it's usually around $1. But I heard these days it goes to $4. The $4 per the barrel is a very huge premium. So we can avoid all these things if the crude oil is going to Sri Lanka and the refinery is used for production of the required refined products, and that can save a lot of the local the labor force also. About 1,500 labor force the government is paying unnecessarily if the refinery shut down, because they are highly paid the group of the country, so they are paying when the refinery shut down. So best thing is to run the refinery at its maximum throughput. I always say maximum throughput.
When you compare Sri Lanka's refinery compared to other countries, talk to us about the upgrade process. How upgraded, how updated is our refinery?
I will give a very good example. When the Sri Lankan refinery was built and at the 35,000 barrels per day, at the same time that time our consultants were Egyptian, and it was built by the Italian Snam Pragati. But at the same time Egypt's government as Alexandria refinery also made in the same 35,000 metric ton. When they increased up to 50,000, Sri Lanka also made 50,000. And when they go to 100,000, Sri Lanka also proposed. Sri Lanka is still struggling to go to 100,000, and the Alexandria refinery, then now the refinery upgraded to 150,000 metric ton, and they have the hydrocracker, and they make the sulfur, they make activated, they make carbon, and they make oil product, they make solvents, and it's a complete refinery and making a huge profit. And our refinery, the big mistake done by the government is the not investing money for the expansion and modernization of the Sapakastanda refinery.
So they are missing out on an opportunity to be profitable, is there?
And are still profitable, because the refinery shut down every once in 2 years or once in 3 years. They normally shut down and make changes, everything. Refineries operate in the safe manner, so it is up to date now. For example, if you take the petrol now, the platinum reformer, they will have to import we have the platinum reform in Sri Lanka government, we have a platinum reserve in US, and we make the platinum catalyst, and time to time we export our used catalyst and get the new catalyst, and that technology is updating. But the refinery capacity and the new units like hydrocracker, it's very, very pathetic that Sri Lanka Ceylon Petroleum Corporation tried several times to introduce hydrocracker, where the hydrocracker is the profit making unit of any refinery, and that was done in somewhere 1978. That was abandoned due to some politicians' kickbacks.
Well, that was my follow-up question.
Yes, and then again I think one government, they make again another proposal, make a proposal to put to refineries in Trincomalee, and then another Sri Lankan scientists who work in the Sapakastanda refinery, they make a proposal to boot project for Sapakastanda refinery to modernize and expand refinery, modernize, and then to make it an export refinery. But the government also, I don't know some reason, that also abandoned. Then when sometimes back, and the Sri Lankan government again then make a feasibility study, and then go to Egypt, and Egypt they made a feasibility study, and then Iran came forward and they said they want to help Sri Lanka. Iran voluntarily came, and they said they are, that time it was about $1.7 billion investment, and then somehow it goes up to about 2.5 or 2.7. And the Iranian government agreed to pay about 70 or 75%, balance about $450 million only they were expecting, but that was not complied by the Sri Lankans. So still even the Iranian president came and put the foundation stone expansion, still only foundation stone is there, nothing has happened.
Seems like so many missed opportunities, Mr. Suduwella.
Exactly, the Sri Lanka missed opportunity, maybe in the sense the right people in Sri Lanka. What I found is the Sri Lanka, right people are not the right place, so right throughout. And there were very good people in the Sapakastanda, but the good people always leave cooperation, go to and serve most of the Middle East refineries and European and other countries. But what is left behind is not, I am not going to say they are bad, but they are also frustrated because of the way that the refinery, they are working the same outdated or the small refinery. We sometimes call it a kettle. It's like a small kettle, like a refinery, very small compared to other refineries in the world.
Well, I want to ask you about why it is that several governments have tried to upgrade, but yet there doesn't seem to have been any success in that area. But we will discuss that right after this break. We'll cross over now for a short commercial break. Don't go anywhere.
Oh yes.
Newsline.
Good evening and welcome back to Newsline Live on TV1. I'm Shehan Ranatunga, and as I'm sure you know, our guest tonight is Mr. Cyril Suduwella. He is a former head of the laboratory and manager technical services at the Sapugaskanda Oil Refinery. He is also Senior Deputy General Manager Corporate Affairs and Business Development for the Petroleum Corporation. Who better to tell us about this current situation in the country? Mr. Suduwella, prior to the break, you were telling us about the whole upgrading process of refineries in Sri Lanka and all these opportunities that came our way from other countries, but missed opportunities. We are facing a situation today with a crisis in the power sector, and many governments, past, present, have attempted to fix this problem, attempted to upgrade the refinery. But yet they seem to have failed when you look at the situation right now. What is your reading or assessment on this?
One thing is there must be some consistent policy when the government changes. When there is no consistent policy, so of course the policy, the projects are, the policies change. But the issue is why the consistent policies are not there. It is not. I have noticed that most of the refinery expansions were either brought into Sri Lanka or introduced having some other secret agenda behind it. So I know that even the last the refinery expansion, it was the first feasibility was done. Even me also participated the feasibility study. The local team in the refinery, local team made the feasibility study to a very good extent, and but that time some point they were not happy that the feasibility study, they want to get the foreign feasibility study. Then they make I also went to Egypt, and the Egypt government again the second time they voluntarily agreed to give the free of charge feasibility study for our refinery. And after going to the Egypt, that time they make the proposal for about 1.7 billion expenditure for the expansion of the refinery to 100,000 barrels per day with the hydrocracker and various the units similar to the Alexandria refinery. That is why I refer, because I have been to Alexandria refinery with them, and we saw that the same age, same time built two refineries, how they even Egypt with having all these difficulties that country, how they developed that one. And I noticed that even the some, I can't say all these politicians, some politicians had this the mind that they were, when the whatever project comes, they are always thinking about their portion. I think that is why all of a sudden it has changed to Iran. When it goes to Iran, all of a sudden it came up to 2.8 billion, I think, and finally today it is 3.5 billion. So the refinery, if I'm not 100% sure, but if I'm correct, when the existing refinery was built in 1960s by the Snam Pragati, it was about, I think, about 167,000 million US dollars, a very small amount, even less than the quarter billion US dollars, but it was built in nicely and it operated and handed over to Sri Lankan the intellectuals and the technologies. They were running very smoothly, and the refinery also got so many awards for the safety and various awards. But today refinery situation is purely due to not as I tell you, not the management of either CPC or the government or the respective government not taken the right decision at the right time.
You highlighted politicians, and I'm sure when we say politicians we are referring to corrupt politicians.
That's right.
But also, how much of it is corrupt politicians, and how much is it trade union members, trade unions?
Petroleum Corporation trade unions, I will not say they are not involved in this type of projects. So their involvement of this type of projects are very insignificant. But so they are participants. They always the unions also always supporting the expansion. But sometimes they were against the participation of private parties. That of course they are right from the beginning.
This is why I asked the question.
Yeah.
Because doesn't that also impede the process? Not that we are calling for outsiders to come in and...
Yeah, there was a proposal, boot proposal from US, the Sri Lanka citizen living in US or Canada, and he wrote a good proposal, but the union that time opposed because of this term. But they said they were asking for some buyback agreement, and they were asking for right of the boot project, and they said the Ceylon Petroleum Corporation will turn into a private company, so they will lose their the rights and other things. So the unions are worried about the employees, that everything. But it is it's a one just occasion. Other occasions also some people tried. Even I can remember even some time back. If you forget about Sapukas and the refinery, the other refineries also came. I can remember that when Hambantota harbour was building up, there was a proposal, and someone, I think the land also allocated, and they make the proposal and they registered BOA company. I think they were asking for purchase helicopters also. I think they finally, the land, I don't know whether it's taken by government. I know that it is now a mango plantation. So like that, the refinery expansion is the essential one for the country, and still it's not laid. But I think the present government, of course, they tried hard at the beginning. The minister also hard beginning and make the new feasibility study, and I think they are waiting to find the investor, and if the refinery expansion done. But one thing, the refinery, of course, if the as unions they want the 100% government owned, then they must secure the supply of crude oil also, and Sri Lanka offers a good footing sometimes back. But today situation, because of COVID, maybe if this situation is dissipated very soon, if the country can afford to purchase crude oil, and there are countries like Iran is ready to give crude oil, even barter system, that crude oil to the tea. But because of trade embargo we are facing, otherwise Iranian crude is the best one, and they were supplying it, they help us to a very great extent.
You mentioned COVID as a possible reason, which was my next question. Situation right now, maybe until Monday we might not have power cuts as per the latest government
yes,
statement.
I think for that one the CEB was asking for power cut. I must thank the Public Utility Commission. They normally look into all possibilities, and they were looking for to get the furnace oil everywhere. They check where even the some of the tanks, even the 500 small quantities in petroleum corporation, some tanks they check tank by tank where the furnace oil are present, and they make the request. Finally indirectly they make the request to give it to the CEB, and also they make an appeal to the public that this situation, and at least to conserve energy by different way. Conserve energy means now for when you import diesel, about 4,000 metric tons daily used for the transport sector, and I know that out of that one 37% is Western area, so Western province. So if the transport is cut down certain extent, if we can save at least out of 4,000, if we can wait at least 1,500 the metric ton per day, that we can use for power generation, and that type of the effects were I think were put forwarded by the PUCSL, and so even because they cannot produce energy, or they cannot produce furnace oil, but they can make the situation at least ease for power generation.
Mr. Suduwella, you're speaking as a consultant to the PUCSL, which is why you can say what you say so boldly. My next question is, you obviously have a lot of experience. In fact, could you tell us how many years of experience do you have in this field?
No, I have about since I graduated from 1978 from Peradeniya University, I served only 2 years as a lecturer in the Calgary University. After that, the total the period since 1980 to date is the petroleum industry. I graduated as a chemistry, then I did my masters, and then did my the petroleum the postgraduate degree in University of Urbino, Italy. So then I work in Saudi Arabia, then I work in Nigerian National Petroleum, then I work in Stannis Refinery, so various places. So I get roughly about 40 years of experience in the petroleum industry.
So 40 years of experience. So my question is this experience being properly utilized for a country which is in this position of a crisis? Have you been consulted Mr. Suduwella?
No, that of course not only myself. It is the bad pathetic situation in Sri Lanka. So the intellectuals are selected on again the political favorations, and so that is why I said the right people are not the right place.
That's a very strong statement you are saying, Mr. Suduwella,
Yes,
because perhaps they might say
no. I can say straight away, because now when I work in the, because after retirement I continue to serve in various positions, like I served as a chairman sugarcane research and the jet fuel advisor to Sri Lankan Airlines and airport aviation, and then Minister of Science Technology advisor, but never invited from the Petroleum Corporation at least to serve for 1 month as a consultant, because they maybe think that they are looking for a half-baked people, not the people experienced. That's the bad situation in Sri Lanka, not only the petroleum, everywhere is the same. So when I have been to Japan for a conference in STS forum, and I got an opportunity to attend one petroleum research project. After listening my experience and everything, they signed an agreement with me for about almost 4.5 years. They continuously pay me. They hire me as a consultant. But in Sri Lanka, after retirement, for the petroleum sector, never approached me from the Petroleum Corporation to get my experience or whatever. It's only my word. It's not me. I think if you take about 100 the people who retired with a lot of experience in the not only petroleum and other field also, the situation is similar.
Mr. Suduwella, we've come to the end of the show, but I have to just ask you one quick question. If you had to estimate how long before we can come out of this situation, if we take the right measures, how soon can we come out of this situation?
I think that it's a big, we'll have to make the refinery expansion, we'll have to make the new power stations, new now the LNG, now the latest, we have to get that.
If you give me a time duration,
2
months, 3 months, 6 months?
No, minimum 3 years. We need
3 years.
Yes, because put up of LNG power plant and the operate, I expect the 3 years, the refinery also.
Well, thank you, Mr. Cyril Suduwella. That was Mr. Cyril Suduwella. He is a former head of the laboratory and manager technical services at the Sapugaskanda Oil Refinery, as well as Senior Deputy General Manager, Corporate Affairs and Business Development for the Petroleum Corporation, tonight on Newsline. I hope you enjoyed tonight's program. Thank you for your company. Have yourself a great evening, great weekend, and God bless.
Thank you. Right.